All right, we're recording now, and then I will send out the recording. I apologize.
No worries. Thank you.
Taryn, it's Lisa. One question, one technical question is, do the reporters need the cameras to go full screen when each person is answering? Is that a possibility? Can you do that?
So I do have it set up that the person who is speaking should be full screen. So let's test that out. Michelle Freeman, will you speak?
Yes, testing right now. I'm speaking. Is it working?
It's working on my end.
My end as well. Okay, perfect. All right, so we're going to start over. I apologize. We're going to start with Ross's first question. We're going to go back to what are some of the signs of depression or mental health problems that parents should be looking for?
You had originally called on Michelle, and I'm not sure if it was this Michelle or Michelle Freeman. So this is Michelle Guerra from HPN. So as presented in the More Than Sad program, they were looking at behaviors and mood. Some of the behaviors including withdrawing from activities, isolating from families, sleeping too much. Mood included depression, anxiety, irritability. So I think the program laid out nicely what those warning signs are.
And certainly Taryn's response, which was anything that makes a family member say, it's a change. I wonder what's going on. Pursuing that and following up with connecting and engaging your family member with what might be going on, what's happening, how are you thinking, how are you feeling?
This is Terry Barr from HPN. I think another thing that I just thought about is the activities that teenagers normally like to do. So, if we talked about the withdrawing piece and things like that, but activities that normally would bring, a teen joy or happiness, those are some of the things that with depression, you notice that there's a decrease in those activities as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Not engaging in pleasurable events.
Yeah, I'll chime in there too. I mean, just as we know that there's no one single cause for suicide, no one thing that we can blame a suicide on, there's no one tried and true risk or warning sign that we can look at. We have to make sure that we're taking a comprehensive approach and that we're looking at everything. And especially, like has just been said, making sure that we're taking that specific individual into account. Those things that are different for them in that very moment that may trigger that need to reach out, and making sure that we're also developing treatment plans that are individual specific as well, because that one specific type of treatment that may work for somebody else may not work for that individual or that teen. So really important that we're taking each person into account, and the fact that it could be a multitude of things that create that moment of crisis for them.
Yeah, well said.
Thank you. All right, Ross has another great question that's a good follow-up to that. If a parent suspects their child may be depressed or struggling, how might they initiate that conversation with sensitivity, but not pushing the child away? Michelle Freeman, do you want to start with that one?
Sure. Thank you, Taryn. I think it's very important to have open, honest, engaging conversations, and not necessarily to just wait until the parent may think that there's something wrong. That's absolutely a time to have a conversation with them, but it's important to have conversations ongoing at all times. And it's really easy to have the conversations, although they may not be simple, right? And certainly when you speak about suicide or depression and or any kind of mental health issue, it's difficult. It's difficult for all of us to speak about that. So if you engage in these conversations early on, just like you would with your physical health, it will become a little bit more comfortable for you to discuss and for you to be willing to have conversations that are hard for your with your children. That will be so much more helpful. And just having a conversation and asking straight out, it's okay if you notice something that's different to say, you know, I'm noticing a little something different. Is everything okay? Putting ownership on you is very good instead of putting the ownership or possibly looking at like it's blame on the child. So if you take it on, I'm noticing a little something and I'm concerned. Is everything okay? And being as specific as possible also helps that. And I always want to remind people, asking somebody if they're suicidal is not going to put that idea in their minds. People that are struggling with either depression or feeling of hopelessness or helplessness, they want to be loved. They want to feel loved. They want to feel like people care and they want to feel supported. So having those conversations will help. Thank you.
And also, I think that adapting to our technology as well. If it's more comfortable to do something over text, then hey, shoot out a text. My brother was very, very vocal over text message about the way that he was feeling, but not so much in person. So communicating with him through text sometimes was the way to be that ear to listen. Whatever's most comfortable for them is definitely important.
Yeah. Thank you, Kimmy.
Yeah, and Kimberly, I'd love to just add on this. This is Michelle Freeman again. I'd love to just add on meeting where people where they're at. So we don't want them to come to us. We want to help people and meet them where they're at.
One of the things, Michelle, that you said, or many of the things that you said are so important because it's about being that safe place, creating that safe environment where we can have that dialogue, where we can have that discussion. And if we can come to the person at that place, it makes the conversation so much easier for them to come and talk to us.
And I think also, this is Terry Barr from HPN, part of the presentation that really stood out to me, once again, going back to the More Than Sad video, I think a lot of times parents, not that they're not empathetic, but if they haven't been ever, in the research, it says if they haven't experienced any kind of mental health crisis, depression, a lot of times it'll be that frustration of snap out of it. Get over it. You have nothing to be sorry about. And so when you're working with teenagers, or children in general, you just have, like Michelle said, meeting them where they're at, but really taking the concerns, the sadness to heart, because they don't see it as that way, that they can just snap out of it. Because this is very real. These symptoms are very real. So I think for parents, also the psychoeducational piece of, learning about what is mental health, learning about the risk factors and going, okay, let me research depression a little bit more instead of it just snap out of it and get over it. Because that's not going to work. That's not going to help. So what not to do?
Well, I sure
I
like
think that part also, that's part of the presentation that did resonate with me, was the helplessness. The parent feels helpless. They don't know what to do. And for me, there are 3 components that we've provided here. The education on the warning signs, the importance of having that discussion, talking to your child. And then the third thing is arming them with the tools, the resources. What's my next step as a parent? I've been able to engage in this conversation. They're sharing some information with me, but where do we go from here? And I think that the frustration comes from not knowing what resources are out there. That, to me, was the beautiful part of this whole presentation, was the education, the local resources. And we've created an approach where the participant, the parent, the caregiver, the neighbor, whoever it is, now has a little bit of a three-step process to help the youth with whatever they're dealing with.
Yeah, thank you, Michelle. So we're going to move on to the next question. This question comes from KOLOTV, and it asked, why is depression such a major focus of this presentation? And are there any misconceptions we're hoping to clear up for parents or family members?
This is Michelle Guerra. I'd like to field this one first. So a lot of the warning signs that were provided aren't specifically related just to depression. They're signs that are related to other mental illnesses as well. Isolation is not just a depressive symptom. There are other mental illnesses that is a symptom of. So I think what we have is these warning signs. Many of them are common among many of those diagnoses. But at the end of the day, it's really about an observable behavior. So you've got to be able to see it in order to address it. Someone that might be a clinician has a larger skill set. Knows what questions to ask, is comfortable having that discussion. That's not always the case. So the importance of being able to observe the mood, the behaviors, really creates the opportunity to have a better understanding of what's going on or to recognize when something is going on.
Yeah, thank you, Michelle. I'll just add one part, is why AFSP focused on the teen depression and why we call it more than sad. Research lets us know that the majority of individuals who experience a mental health condition do so by age 11. Age 11 is a poignant time. This is when our body is experiencing chemical changes and puberty and other things. So again, it's important for us to learn these signs and symptoms so that we can be aware. So again, I just think it's important that we recognize that depression is a symptom of, that people experience when they might contemplate suicide. So thank you. Is there another thought that would like to be added on that? We have one more question and then
Well, I think it's important to remember that oftentimes, although suicide is often associated with depression, that oftentimes disorders that increase energy are like agitation or anxiety often gives folks the energy to actually go ahead and engage in a self-harming behavior. So we have to be sensitive to the fact that folks who have energy, especially more energy than usual, are at risk for self-harm, especially if we notice that their judgment may be impaired or they may be using that energy and focusing it in a negative direction.
Perfect. Thank you, Ward. All right, the last question that I have is, what is the biggest takeaway we would like parents to gather from tonight's presentations? Michelle Freeman, do you want to kick us off with that one? And then Terry Barr, we'll have you give us a thought.
Sure. I think one of the biggest things is to stay connected, continue to have conversations, and trust your gut. Trust your gut and think. If you think something's not right, don't be the one to sit back and say, you know what, someone else will ask the question. Take it and be the person to engage in a conversation and to check in, and know that you're not alone. Know that there's help. Know that people care. Provide support. Show empathy. Show love. Be genuine. And don't wait for a crisis to happen to engage in your communication.
Thank you, Michelle. Terry, do you have a final thought of what you hoped people would take away?
Yes, I think I'm more seasoned, I'll put it that way, and aged. Back in my day, you couldn't say the S word, right? Suicide. And so as my work, as a therapist, people now can say the S word. So even parents can say suicide. how are you feeling? Are you suicidal? You know, things like that. But I think also, I can't remember who on the panel shared how important social media bullying are new concepts, or not new concepts, but concepts that teens are really struggling with or have to encounter. There were no such things when I was growing up, so I didn't have that piece. So I think for parents to be really savvy and privy into what their teens or kids are putting on Facebook, because like Kimberly said, that could be posted on social media as a cry for help. And so I think that's an important takeaway as well. So thank you.
You. Thank you, everybody. That's at least all the questions we had, so we'll go ahead and stop there.
Hey, Taryn.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Go ahead, Ross.
No, I apologize. I just have a one more question. It's a little longer, so I didn't want to type it out. I was hoping I could just ask it out if that's okay with you.
Yeah, go for it.
So since this New York Times article came out, there's just been a lot of increased attention, in the realm of teen suicides, and just shedding light on the number of kids in Clark County who have taken their lives during this pandemic. And the article, I thought, basically stated that it's hard to draw the line conclusively to distance learning. But I've spoken with a lot of parents about this, and a lot of them feel really strongly that is what is driving a lot of these, the mental health problems and these suicides. I'm just wondering if you guys can address how much of the blame you think should be assessed to distance learning, and is the issue more complicated than that, I guess, is what the question boils down to.
Yeah. So I'll start with absolutely the issue is more complicated than that. Suicide is very complex. It's a multitude of factors. Is distance learning potentially one of those factors? Absolutely. What we saw happen in COVID is that people's distress was increased, right? The traditional risk factors that we speak of for suicide, most of us were experiencing. Isolation, withdrawing from friends and family, not being able to participate in things that brought us joy, uncertainty. So definitely it's been elevated, but again, we don't have any clear data that's going to show, cause and effect right now. What we have seen is that suicide is the second leading cause of death for youth in the state of Nevada. That has been true for years. This story and this media attention has definitely brought to light the issues that we need to continue working on. So again, we were grateful to have an opportunity tonight for people to come and join and get educated to learn how they could support their young person through this time and moving forward. When we go back to school, there's going to be need for us to make sure that we're prepared and we know how to support them moving forward, because things are going to stay different for a little while. So like I say, we don't have, clear data yet from 2020. We have what we've heard is being reported, but we don't have accurate numbers yet. So we need to give it time. Let's do the research. But in the meantime, there are steps we can each take to protect our mental health, to support our young people, to protect their mental health. And it's vital that we do so. That would be my thoughts. Is there another person that would like to offer a thought?
I think you answered it eloquently.
Thank you. Does that help, Ross?
That definitely helps. Thank you all so much. The answers were
thank
tremendous.
you.
And we just want to get the word out and help as many parents as we can, because I'm hearing from
Yeah.
them and they're all looking for answers. So thank you again.
Yeah, and there's Ross, I'll make sure to include a blog that we provided as well that gave, again, parents tips for how to support their young people, especially during this time of distance learning. So we'll make sure that you guys have access to that too.
That would be great. Thank you all again.
Yep.
Thank you. Thank you.